Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I am super excited because it's not raining blood, but it's raining Bloodsport. We are a few short days away from Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 4, and I have one of the competitors that is making his return to the Bloodsport ring, the one and only Grizzly, Kal Jack. Kal, what's going on, my brother?
Woods, not much, just training, getting ready for Blood of Sport, which I'm very excited about. Get to go down to LA, get to go to an undisclosed location, get to find out I'm taking on Nolan Edwards, and who I don't know much about, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm just excited. Been training nonstop for this. Been doing my pro wrestling training, been doing my amateur wrestling training, been watching as much Bloodsport as I can so I can make up for that loss to Hammer. So got to right that wrong eventually. But other than that, man, things are good. I'm just hanging out in the Cal Cave, undisclosed location as well. You can see it right in the background. My cave. There's Paul the bear, Bear. And, he's just chilling as well. He wanted to say what's up, so he says hello. Shy guy. So, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So I haven't talked to you in a while, man. It's been since October at least.
October-ish, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Which, my goodness, this you talked about, amping up your wrestling training. You're amping up your pro wrestling. Your amateur wrestling training, because you have all of that to kind of pull from, to kind of, I guess, use and implore, but you're going to need all of it, right? Because this is true to form, right? Like the Bloodsport movie of a different era. It is exactly that. It's undisclosed location. It's gritty. It's grimy. It's kick-ass, in your face. Don't give a fuck about anything but whooping the other person's ass. Wins and losses actually fucking matter when it comes to Josh Barnett and Bloodsport.
Very true. And right now, I'm 0 for 1. Not cool. I got to fix that up this weekend. Got to at least be 50-50. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun, man. From looking at the card and the guy's going to be there for this first show, dude, it's going to be nasty. I think this is a more well-rounded card. The other shows were, they've been great. I've watched the other shows. I think we're going back to a very well-rounded card as far as like athletes, the fighters, competitors, guys of all sorts of backgrounds. So I'm really looking forward to it. There's some guys I haven't heard of or seen before. So getting the opportunity to watch them compete. And also for me, it's like, oh, cool. I get to come back. I get the opportunity to come back and kind of prove myself again. That's my goal, is to prove that I can be a blood sporter, if that makes sense.
No, that makes absolute sense. Which again, this is my favorite time of the year. Bloodsport. I'm kind of, I don't want to say ornery in my pro wrestling taste and what have you, but I've always fancied, the legit grapplers, right? I've always fancied the Hearts. I've always fancied the Bulldogs, Furnace and LaFawn. And then, you go to a different era, you've got Shayna Baszler. Like, anytime that I would hear somebody utter the words and the phrase catch as catch can, I was like, that's the shit that I like. That's the shit I'm going for. And, this is it. It's catch as catch can. Josh Barnett himself, the namesake of this particular card. He calls himself a pro wrestler first, everything else second, right? This is prior to Brock Lesnar and prior to John Jones, was the youngest UFC champion, and prior to Brock Lesnar, youngest UFC champion of all time, and that means something to him. That means something to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, Brock was the youngest WWE champion. Youngest WWE champion, then John Jones, youngest UFC champion, and then Josh Barnett was the youngest heavyweight champion. Mm-hmm. So this is, those are all big names that modern themselves of like being great wrestlers. They're all great wrestlers. That's the number one thing. John Jones was a wrestler before a fighter at Iowa Central. You have Brock, who wrestled at South Dakota, JUCO, and then went to Lassen Community College, which not all – see, here's a little fun fact that I learned was Brock went to Lassen Community College after South Dakota State because when he got discovered, he went to an open tournament. So Shelton Benjamin was the starting guy. Shelton lost to this heavyweight from Nebraska. Brock wrestled that guy the next round and pinned him. Mm-hmm. And then I forget I know it's Jay Robinson was the head coach, but the coach that saw him, I forget his name. Anyway, they wanted to recruit Brock. So Brock finished out his schooling. But Brock didn't get a full junior season in college. So he had to go to this community college in Northern California called Lassen Community College, where a lot of really good, like Anthony Johnson, Rumble Johnson, went to Lassen Community College, and he's a beast. Same with Jamil Kelly, who went to Lassen Community College, then went to Oklahoma State, and then took second in the Olympics. And then that's the thing. Brock went there, got his credits, boom, showed up in January. February. So you have all these Big Ten guys that are getting ready for the tournament. Or not even Big Ten. Before that, boom, boom, boom. There's guys that were getting ready to wrestle at some tournament, and then they all of a sudden they see Brock, who they had no idea of. And then Brock, half a season, makes the NCAA finals, takes on Stephen Neal, who, if you guys know your history of Stephen Neal, he was a 3-time NCAA champion, played football for the New England Patriots, has 3 Super Bowl rings as a starting guard with the Patriots, with Tom Brady, who we just had Super Bowl Sunday yesterday, who he just won his 7th ring. Man, I can go on about history and what I know. But anyway, so there is an assortment of grapplers that Barnett is under that like tree of great grapplers that he's under that tree of great grapplers. So it's cool that he's running Bloodsport in his vision, how he sees things. And he's a very artistic, particular guy. So you got to fit with what he likes. And that's really cool. That's the challenge he gives to all of us Bloodsporters. So very exciting. Very exciting for how this weekend's going to turn out.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Which, I mean, you talked a lot about history, but you yourself and your family are pretty entrenched into amateur wrestling and collegiate wrestling history. I mean, you and your dad. I mean, my dad was a musician, right? And I can't play a lick worth a damn. I can't sit down to figure out the chords. I want to sit there and be damn fucking, I don't know, Pete Townsend, and just fucking do the windmill and get the fuck out, right?
My love, open the door. Heck yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that all being said, your dad was an accomplished wrestler in his own right.
Yeah. Very good.
And then, I mean, how do you end up doing what your dad does? Because I think that would be some huge shoes to fill, a huge shadow to kind of have cast over you.
I give more props to him in that regard because his goal was always like, whenever I talk to my dad, it's either the only things we ever talk about is what are you up to? And then we talk about his wrestling and my wrestling. Those are the only things we ever talk. We don't talk about what music you listen to or what movies you like or what books you read or like we only talk about our wrestling history. And it's so funny because he's got a really he's kind of all over the place when it comes to like pro wrestling. And what cracks me up the most is that he'll tell me about who he beat, who he lost to, but then he'll leave out like one super fat detail that I'm like, dude, that would have helped me more than me finding out that you got pinned by Howard Harris from Oregon State, who obviously the guy is a legend. If you don't know who Howard Harris is, but anyway, he pinned Bruce Baumgartner at one point. Yeah. So anyway, but anyway, he tells me that like he used to train at the Olympic Training Center for Greco-Roman wrestling at the 220-pound weight class, and it was him, and he trained with Gary Albright.
Yeah.
And Gary Albright, has huge history in All Japan. So, and he's married to, I think we talked about this last time. He's part of the
Samoan dynasty, the
Samoan
Anawaki
dynasty.
family.
Yeah. So my dad and him were training partners. And it's like, he told me that when I first got into developmental at WWE, like after the fact I left. And I'm like, well, why couldn't you tell me this earlier? It would have helped out with like me trying to navigate through the waters, because I started pro wrestling in developmental. I didn't do the independent scene, or I didn't get into MMA fighting or grappling. I obviously had a collegiate background, but it's just like, man, that would help me out so much more. But he brings that up after the fact that they were buddies. So it's just hilarious how he's so particular on what to talk about when it comes to his wrestling background. And like we've said before, he wrestled. I know Gotch brought it up, brought up about the Dr. Death match and the Cliff King. He pinned him in the earlier rounds. Then my dad ends up losing, and then Dr. Death wrestles from one end of the round all the way through the consolation rounds back to my dad for third and fourth, and my dad just did the same maneuver, caught him under, hooked him in the half, and pinned him. So that's something that's always fun to talk about that not a lot of people are familiar with.
Which, this is fun, right? Because, your dad essentially beat Death, Dr. Death Steve Williams, but Death twice, right? And obviously, the reason why Stone Cold Steve Austin's name is Austin is because there was already a Dr. Death, and that was already a Steve Williams, which is Austin's given name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that Steve Williams is Dr. Death, right?
Exactly.
And there's a little bit of infamy that goes with Dr. Death's name because the much babble who he Brawl for All and the WWF.
Just thinking about that because I watched that Brawl for All series on Vice when they broke it all down. God, that was so good. And then Bart Gunn knocks him out.
Yes,
and it's so funny how. If you took Bloodsport rules and you put it in Brawl for All, which they should have done, it would have. I don't know if it would have worked or whatnot. It's just if you took those same guys from Brawl for All, you put them in Bloodsport. Who flipping knows how that whole thing would have turned out? It would have been like Bart Gunn wasn't going to win. I guarantee Severn would have stayed. I bet Shamrock would have gone in on it.
Yes.
Dr. Death would have been in it. Like, that would have been sick. It would have been awesome to see.
But then again, Godfather actually, held his own pretty well. Yeah. Bear, as we've come to know him through the Undertaker documentaries and what have you, The Last Ride, he's Bear. He's fucking Bear, So, which is funny because you're the Grizzly, and I find that fun.
That's fun. That's awesome.
Now, obviously, we're talking about, the WWE's, what could have happened if they implemented Bloodsport rules in Brawl for All. Well, here's the thing. We don't have to imagine too wildly because they had Raw Underground, which to me was garbage. And I talked to Barnett about it. I hated it.
What did Barnett say about if you want to share it, what he thought about Raw Underground?
He was very, very kind to.
Okay, that works. Because that's all I need to know because that sounds about right.
I completely shit on it. I was just like, ugh. The fact that Nakamura, not only as that guy.
Nakamura.
Yes.
You have Riddle.
Riddle?
Yeah.
Let's go. We got Shelton Benjamin.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Shelton, Gable. Hey,
Gable. Gable.
Otis has a shoot background. That's another thing. Tucker Knight, Levi Cooper. That's his real name. So I wrestled him in college.
No way.
3 times. 3 times. So him and I've known Levi since he was in high school. Same with Otis. So Levi Cooper, Tucker Knight. He goes to Portland State. They lose their program. He goes to Cal State Bakersfield.
Yes.
Their program.
CSUB?
Yep. Their program gets on the rocks. Like they're about to drop their program. So he hits up the head coach at the time was Sean Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Hits up Sean Charles, says, hey, can I walk on, or not walk on, but can I, I want to go to Arizona State. And at the time, they didn't really have a heavyweight per se. So he goes to Arizona State. And guess who his head coach, or guess who the assistant coach was at Arizona State when Tucker Knight was there?
I'm going to say Dan Severn?
No, Severn wasn't coaching. It
Okay.
was Ben Askren.
No shit.
Yep, Ben Askren was the assistant coach at Arizona State when Tucker Knight was there.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and we can go on about Ben Askren and his trials and tribulations with the UFC and all that. But so anyway, Askren worked with Tucker a lot. So I wrestled Tucker. I wrestled him my junior year. He was a sophomore in college. And we're at Oregon State, and keep in mind Tucker originally is from Oregon.
Yes.
So he had more people there cheering for him than me. So his whole family showed up and showed out. So he was hyped, and he had a couple big wins before coming to me anyway. So he was ready to go. We do the match, like shoot wrestling, college wrestling. We do the match. I'm beating him for the most part, and then he just starts. He gets a second wind, and he's coming at me. And, like, the refs aren't playing favorites with me. They're calling me for stalling. He's getting after me. He ends up hitting me with an underhook to a single leg. I tried to throw him in a lat drop. He caught me for 2, ends up beating me in the dual meet. So he got the first win over me. I never forgot that. I was so mad. And he knows how mad I was. So I remember I stormed out of the gymnasium like, I'm out of here. I didn't even go to the after dinner party that we do after every dual meet. I was like, I don't care. So I left. And so anyway, I ended up not wrestling him in Pac-12s. I wrestled the guy he lost to, and I beat the guy he lost to. And then the following year, we're wrestling them at their house in Arizona State. So he didn't have Ben Askren there. Ben Askren ended up moving, got into MMA, got really good in MMA. And I remember wrestling Levi. Score the first round was like 0, or Tucker. Score was 0-0. Second round, I choose bottom. I get away. I catch him in a body lock. The kind that when you see Big E throws the guy over.
Yes.
Caught him in a body lock. Launched him over. He tried to inside trip me. No way. Put him on his back and pinned him in his house. So I got him back, and then I wrestled him in the finals at Pac-12 that same year, and I beat him like just 4-0. Just beat him, nothing crazy. But he might have beat me the first time, but I beat him back twice. But yeah, that's another name you throw into the if they did Raw Underground right, you put in him. You put in him. You put in Otis. Like you said, Shelton Benjamin, Nakamura, Gable, Riddle.
Yeah.
There's a few other guys that anybody who has like an amateur background or some kind
Dolph
of.
they did something.
Yeah, wrestled at Kent State.
Yeah, but
put in him.
But they did something weird with Dolph. I remember he did do that, and I think that's where it lost its legitimacy for me. And again, I crave Bloodsport even more because I'm like, to quote Bianca Belair, you don't even go here. Like Raw Underground didn't even
go there.
It was just, and I talked to Barnett about it when he was on, and it was just like, how could Raw Underground and Retribution exist in the same kind of universe?
I don't know.
Right?
Well,
WWE.
Apparently they scrapped Raw Underground as soon as they brought in Retribution. But it's like, so I crack up because you see Braun Strowman with that Bobak Mohammadi kid. And the Bobak kid's huge, but I texted Strowman because I'm buddies with him. I go, man, if you're going to put the boots in, brother, you got to sink them in deeper. He goes, I tried. The kid was moving around so much. I'm like, the kid looked kind of squirrely. He's this big dude. I'm like, you kind of squirrely. He's wiggling around too much.
Oh, that's great. Well, It's funny. And then I don't know that guy. I mean, get these hands, but use no moves with his hands. I
Hey,
mean,
teach his own, man.
yeah, teach their own.
That's his thing. And bless his heart.
Yeah, good
So,
job for him.
yep, good for him.
His name is Adam. My name's Adam. There you go.
Yep, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Cool,
So I
dude.
mean, this is I mean, you and Bloodsport. Obviously, you were talking. You were talking at length about your, you know, your collegiate experience, your wrestling experience, right? And then the fact
Yep,
that you're 0-1 in Bloodsport, right? That
I am.
again, wins and losses actually matter.
It matters.
It
Damn it.
matters.
Matters to me. You
Yeah.
know? So, and it's like you look at Eric Hammer, and, you know, he's a catch world champion. We've talked about he's a big, strong guy. He's bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. At first, because I saw clips of his match with Kratos, and I'm like, okay, he must be like no bigger than, you know, like Karrion Kross. I thought he's about Karrion Kross's size. And don't get me wrong, Karrion Kross is a big, fit, strong guy.
Yes, he is.
But I'm like, kind of just like, he can't be that. You know, is he that? And I'm like, oh no, we're looking eye to eye at least. We're definitely looking eye to eye. He said he's like, you're bigger. I'm like, are we? Am I?
Yeah.
If you say so, I'm not gonna teach his own. You know, so. You know, that was a fun match. At least I got him up on my own, you know, Bloodsport fashion. Legit picked him up twice, actually 3 times, and a blast double. So, you know, imagine if I had my grappling skills more solid, wouldn't have to worry about just takedowns and throws the whole time. So.
Which I mean, it's funny because you know, how I came to know both Josh Barnett and Eric Hammer, you know, is MMA shows, regional amateur and pro MMA shows here in Southern California, you know, and it's funny because me next to those guys and we're just talking, I felt like Teddy Long, you know, with the Twin Towers, the Spivey and Sid, like that's what or even me and Mark Alice, like you know, like that's how I felt. It's just you know, I sans the do-rag with this guy, but you know, that's how tall those two are. I'm just like, where does this even make sense? But I'm glad they're my friends. I'm so
those
glad.
Are 2 guys you want to be friends with. You know, in case you're in a scrap, you know who to hopefully be at least call or say, hey, I know 2 guys that could come here maybe to save me. So think twice, friends.
Yes. I mean, I count you as one of that. I mean, hashtag good brother, right? So I mean, I've literally got paired with my like shit white belt jujitsu. Like I've got something, right?
It counts. Hey, there's nothing wrong with the participation trophy, man. You know?
Yeah, I got the little green magenta ribbon somewhere in here. It's in here for sure.
I believe it. I ain't calling your bluff.
Okay, I was just saying. But I mean, you were talking about Tucker, right? I mean, were you guys at the Performance Center, the WWE Performance Center at the same time?
Yeah, we were there the same time. I mean, if you think about it, we have both as most similar backgrounds as anybody else. But this is where I think WWE's a little weird, okay? Because they give you these names. And I swear to God, they might have been planning something with Tucker and I because we look similar. We're both West Coast guys. We're both All-Americans. When I was in developmental, my name was Bishop, and his name was Knight. What are we going to be? The chess players? Is that like – seriously, it wasn't until after the fact, and I'm just like – they were going to make us chess players. It's Bishop and Knight. Why would they put Bishop and Knight with 2 guys from the same damn area? Like,
I can envision this. I mean, and you guys come out to I guess, what is it? I forgot. It's not Jim Johnston, but whoever's doing their music.
It wasn't the FFOs.
The CFOs or something.
They're gone though, but yeah, it would have been us.
So you guys coming out to a CFO version of When I Move, You Move as a chess player.
Sure.
I'm just saying, like that's I don't know.
A finishing move would have been the checkmate. Oh my god! I swear, women would be like, "You guys are all pawns, and I'm the bishop, and this is the knight."
Could have been worse. She could have been Vinny Vegas. I mean,
Yeah.
could have been Oz.
Sure. I mean, now I think about maybe there is something to this chess gimmick with Tucker Knight.
I'm just,
the chess players. We are chess.
We are chess.
Yeah.
And I'm here to, what is it? I don't know enough about chess, but I was going to go with somewhere with rook or something like that. It sounded good.
We'll take all your pieces and put it on our side. And then we'll get our rooks to go straight forward at you.
Yes.
And then you're going to have me who's just going to go hit my angles. And then Tucky Knight's just going to go side over you. Bam.
Oh, man. You guys can look up like a Bobby. Wasn't it Bobby Fischer? Yeah. You guys just fucking, build a promo around Bobby Fischer quotes. Yeah. That'd be great.
Yep. Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be the most badass that guy has ever been.
We would have quoted Mongo from Blazing Saddles and go, "You're all pawns in the game of life." So.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
writes itself.
Yes, it does. It is. So, yeah. I mean, Tucker, if you're listening, I'm just saying, and if you end up back there, I'm just saying, it's just,
who knows? If I ever did, I've been living the Kal Jack gimmick for so long. I mean, well, it's like, okay, so for example, you take Drew McIntyre. Right. When he left, he was Drew Galloway.
Right.
He's doing Galloway. And then when he came back to McIntyre. See, I didn't have as awesome as a career he did when he first was there as McIntyre. So there could be room to change that to where it could be Kal Jack, or it can't be Kal Jax because Nia Jax, but it could work. Who knows? If I ever came back, right now I'm in the cow cave. If they can even find me, so who knows? We'll find out. We'll see what may happen or what may not happen with after this Bloodsport this weekend.
I know. So. I mean, that's assuming because I assume that, especially with the name, that blood is in the name. It is something that I don't know, like. People will not be the same walking into that Bloodsport ring when they come out of it. You lose a little bit of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, changes you. It definitely does. Especially this Bloodsport, there are no fans watching except for on the Fight app, which you can only get you can only get it through. I forget what the link is and whatnot, but we'll plug that later.
Yeah.
But there's no fans. I don't know what the venue is. I'm pretty sure the only people that are going to be watching is Barnett, the cameras, and we'll just have the ring and that's it, So it'll be very interesting. But it's like I've been wrestling in front of nobody for a long time, even like before pro wrestling. So it's like, oh, this is nothing for me, whatever. I don't need crowds to approve and whatnot and cheer and clap and say this is awesome. That's not for me. Nothing I do is awesome. I just throw people around. Who cares?
I think that's awesome. I mean, I posted on my social media accounts right before the Super Bowl. I posted a picture of Taz and I just put #mood because that's it. To be kind of, like anybody that wants to try to flip your shit, you flip them over, right? You flip them over.
That's how I feel. That's the only flipping that should be. But teach their own on that one. I don't see a lot of gymnastics in other sports, other than gymnastics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and cheerleading.
Which Two-Face and BJ on Twitch says, "What is this channel? We are talking all things Josh Barnett's Bloodsport happening February 13th at
February 12th.
Location.
February 12th.
Is it 12th?
12th.
Is it 12th?
This Saturday.
Okay, it is the 12th.
This Saturday.
Yes, February 12th. This Saturday at an undisclosed location, live on Fight TV.
Yep.
It's tremendous. So I mean, it's kind of weird because a lot of people. You mentioned Drew McIntyre, right? A lot of people who kind of go out of the WWE system. And it's funny because like you're playing to a host of one in Bloodsport. Well, that's not entirely different if you were on the main roster in the WWE. Whatever you do, you're playing to one person. It
Yeah.
could be like a gazillion people in the rafters and whatever, but you're playing to one, right? So
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of unique the fact that I mean you were once there, you were a contracted WWE NXT talent, and most people, like you mentioned with Galloway took that kind of like writing off that release, that future endeavor, and he was just like, I'm gonna make sure that you know who I am, and literally travel the world over.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of unique that you're
Yeah.
like, if I do, awesome. If not, whatever.
Well, now there's just so many, there's so many other avenues. Back then there wasn't like, Impact. That was the only thing. But now it's like you have New Japan. I mean, New Japan's always been there, but I'm just saying like that's par with WWE for sure. And now you have AEW that wasn't around, when he left. So now we have AEW, and that's boom, that's the next big thing that's been around for a little over a year or so. You have Moxley who does Bloodsport, and he's part of AEW. So like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool.
Which I gotta ask, right? In terms of like that WWE run, do you remember like any fun shows or like who did you kind of like gravitate to? It's obviously I'm sure Tucker was one of them, but
Well, for sure. I mean, there was three of us. There's three other guys that I rolled with the most, and it was Angelo Dawkins,
yes,
for sure. Dawkins. Oh yeah, Dawkins has a background too. He could do Bloodsport.
Bloodsport, yeah.
Yeah, he went to Harper College and wrestled, played football, and did track. Super athlete. Dawkins, Dak Draper, or at the time he was Travis Tyler. I mean, his real name's Sam Udell, but he's in ROH right now, so he's doing his thing in Ring of Honor. So he moved to Baltimore, and I haven't seen him do anything yet, but he's there. And then the big man, Madman Fulton. That was another guy. Fulton's another guy who he could get on Bloodsport because he wrestled in Ashland University, this D2 school, and he was a two-time D2 All-American at heavyweight. So you wouldn't guess it looking at him, but he has a legit amateur collegiate background. Like he was really good. So he would fit right in, and he wants to do Bloodsport. Like he's just like, hey man, put a word in. I'm like, you put a word in. I'll put a word in if you put a word in. Like, come on. Like you're gonna scratch my back. If you want me to scratch your back, you're gonna scratch my back, pal. All right. So he's another guy that really wants to do it, and that would be fun to have him in it because he could scrap. I remember when I got let go, I tried to get back into wrestling. He actually is still involved with WWE NXT. Him and I would go wrestle at this little club in Florida called Florida Jets. So I would have him and I would just go out and wrestle and just scrap, and just a good way to get in shape and stuff. So he has a legit background for sure. So it was us three that were the main four that hung out, and then like eventually Occam came in from Authors of Pain.
Yes.
And he wrestled for the Canadian national team because he's from Vancouver, Canada. So he wrestled for Canadian national team. He was like the second runner-up, I believe, on the Canadian team. I don't know what he's up to now since he's left WWE, but him, and then Chad Gable came in a little after him. And then Tucker came in around the same time as him. And I'm sorry, missing. And then like we hung out with like Apollo and Montez Ford, and yeah, that was kind of the main group. And then I hung out with Callahan a lot, Sammy Callahan, and then Gotch and I were really good friends too. Simon and I were really good buddies. So still good friends. So yeah, that was the group right there. It was our little team.
That's another good brother right there, Gotch.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's kind of crazy because, I mean, you guys were all competitive wrestlers, right? But then you
Hmm.
find yourself in a new quote unquote meet. You're in a new team, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
does that kind of competitive energy, does that kind of subside a little bit, and like now you become this, you're like the collegiate wrestling clique,
Oh
or
man, now that this is what's hilarious. Okay, this is a funny story. Also, forgot to mention if Nate Everhart comes back, he didn't hurt his neck, or Jason Jordan,
Jason Jordan? Yeah, yeah.
because he wrestled at Indiana University,
Yes, he did.
and I said this? I wrestled him when I was in college.
No,
He's
I didn't
another
know
guy.
this.
Another guy I wrestled in college. He beat me. So we wrestled. He never All American though, but he should have all. He should have been. This is or Jason Jordan. This is the thing about Jason Jordan. He started school, like grade school, a year early. Like he could have started like his birthday's in like mid-October, like beginning of October. So instead of like starting a little older than all the other kids, he started a lot younger than all the kids. So he starts a lot younger than all the kids. Has a really good career in Illinois, like high school wrestling career. Goes to Indiana. He was supposed to be a 197 pounder. He ends up bumping to heavyweight his junior year, but he never redshirted. So he never redshirted, and so he's 2 years younger than everybody. He goes into his senior year being 2 years younger than everybody. He beats me for one. He beat me 7-3 in this Vegas tournament. He kicked my butt, but at the same time, I had a bum knee, so my leg was all taped up. It would have been closer, okay? Maybe I would have beat him, maybe not, but he got me, and he won the tournament too. So he goes the whole season undefeated up until Big Tens, because Indiana's in Big Tens.
Yeah.
There's a heavyweight out of Iowa named Dom Erickson, who was pretty good, and Nate just had a bad match against him and took, I think, second. And then Nate had a crummy draw at the NCAA tournament, ends up going like 1-2 when he was ranked as high as number 2, maybe in some platforms number 1 in the whole country for college wrestling, being 2 years younger than everybody. So
Wow.
if parents would have hit it in a different world, different universe, he should have been he's 2 grades above me. He's my age. We're the same age. So
Wow.
he was two years younger than everyone as a senior in college wrestling. D1, the highest level you can do in collegiate wrestling is D1, which is the hardest. And he was ranked number 1 the whole season up until the conference finals. Just insane.
There's no question why. I mean, because when I first heard, obviously the devastating injury that he had to his neck, and it was kind of, they were kind of slowly but surely kind of writing him off. And, when I started hearing him as like a producer, I was just like, especially, pre-pandemic, pre this like huge, future endeavor of last year, you talk about, the old school kind of producers or agents. You're talking Dean Malenko, you're talking Arn Anderson, you're talking about Mike Rotundo, aka Mike Wall Street, who again badass wrestler out of Syracuse, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, and then you have the new crew of like, gosh, why am I
JB Noble.
Davari, JB Noble. There's Davari, there was Jeff Jarrett, there was Hurricane. This kind of Adam Pearce is still there. Pat Buck, and I'm all like, how does this guy who kind of like at the time of his injury was, kind of like he was in an okay storyline, but it wasn't there. But like, how does he have the wherewithal to kind of bring the new crop of talent? But I mean, obviously what you're saying is true, where I mean, he was like one of the most prestigious wrestlers in the country at a time where at a weight division that kind of wasn't his natural weight.
He was smaller than all the other heavyweights. He was younger than all the other heavyweights. But I mean, you look at him when he was in WWE, these guys physically strong, just genetically. I mean, maybe because his dad's Kurt Angle, apparently, but
That might happen. Yeah.
Sure. So just insane. If it was a different scenario, who knows? And it's funny because he, after his senior year, he stuck around and coached a little bit because he was studying to be a dentist. So I know you look at that guy and he was going to be a dentist. And there was a heavyweight that I used to wrestle against named Ricardo Alcala, and he transfers to Indiana. And Nate coached him and worked out with him every day. And Ricky was like so okay, but Nate got him, or Jason Jordan got him to be an All-American, and then became an All-American, took 5th. So right after that, Jason goes and gets signed with FCW.
Yes.
And then the rest is just from there,
Yeah, and with him, and obviously, pro wrestling is a hard thing to pick up, especially at the level of, this is pre NXT, this is FCW. There was OVW, there was Deep South. There was a lot of different. They hadn't streamlined the process of developmental, right?
Yeah.
But you kind of wonder, the amount of injuries that he accrues so young in his career. It almost reminds me of Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because he started, let's say he graduated, I was 21. He graduated college at 22. So he was at FCW when he was 22 years old, maybe 22, 21. So he was just real young starting out. When a lot of guys, now that you see how the development is, a lot of guys how they start out, they start either like these collegiate athletes that start right out of college at 22, 23, or you have these independent wrestlers who've been doing the business for many, many years to figure out their craft. And then they go to developmental where they just tweak a few things. Yeah. So, it's just different when you start that young. Some people can do it, others can't. I feel like having life experience before going there is so dang important, at least knowing how to find rent, knowing where to buy a car, knowing where to do your business. A lot of people don't get that, straight out of high school or whatever, or straight out of like a 4-year college, So just different for sure.
Which, I mean, I got to ask, in terms of you professional wrestling and becoming and evolving into a burgeoning professional wrestler, I mean, what did you learn about wrestling through the WWE developmental system?
Because I came in there green as you can get. I knew a little bit. The only thing I knew was WWE. Yeah. I didn't know what the independents were. I went to one independent show prior to going to WWE just to watch. And ironically enough, it was the main event of this little Oregon promotion, what WCWC or West Coast Wrestling Championship. Yes. I don't know if they're still around up in Oregon. I just remember the main event was Adam Pearce versus Colt Cabana.
Whoa!
I know.
For the NWA title?
I think it was like the 7 layers of
7
hell.
levels of hate.
7 levels of hate.
Oh,
I was there for that. I was there
That is amazing.
Yeah, that was my first independent wrestling show. Like, first pro wrestling show I've ever been to. Never went to a WWE live event. Never went to anything like that. Never went to a Raw or SmackDown. So my first, actual match main event I ever watched was Adam Pearce versus Colt Cabana. It was crazy.
I mean, if you're going to wet your whistle, damn, that is. I have the DVD of the 7 levels of hate. And again, for independent professional wrestling, and again, it wasn't like it is now where you have a ton of, theoretically speaking, you don't even need the WWE. I mean, you look at a guy like Davey Boy Smith Jr., Harry Smith, right? Yeah. And he has succeeded in being a professional wrestler outside of the WWE system.
He's paved his own way for sure. Definitely.
Right. Yeah. So, but that 7 levels of hate, I want to think, kind of gave way to a lot of what independent wrestling ended up becoming, within the last it's been about closing in on 10 years, right
Well,
around
because
there.
I saw it in 2012.
Right.
Of
That sounds about right.
It was 2012 was when I
Yep.
saw that. So yeah, it's 9 years, man. It's gonna be 9
Yes.
years, almost a
That's
decade. It's crazy.
that's literally like a fourth grader. Like the
Yeah,
seven levels of hate is a fourth grader.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
age development wise.
Yeah.
But yeah,
My
no,
goodness.
the match. I remember watching it. Like it's so funny because the match. There's a spot where I think it's either Pierce or Cabana where they light a fireball in the other dude's face. But I just
It's
remember there's
Pierce,
a
yeah.
part. Yeah, it's Pierce gets a fireball in the face. I was in that building.
What?
I was standing in the very top row. I even remember the shirt I was wearing. It was this white shirt, and it had a number 1 on it and said number 1 on any given Sunday, which is like a NASCAR reference. I don't know why I was wearing that shirt, but yeah, I remember what shirt I was wearing. And then I remember after the show, I think Chael Sonnen was with us.
Chael Sonnen, yeah.
I think Chael was with us. It was Chael, Kevin Keeney, and I think Chael's like, "Come on, I'm gonna go introduce you to Adam Pierce. You're gonna need to talk to him." So I went and talked to Adam, and I remember he's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to developmental." I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "Oh, you'll be fine, man. You just He didn't give me anything like deep, smart advice. Like now that I'm in the indies now, there's been a few kids that have had tryouts and they've gone there and whatnot, and like when I got hurt with my shoulder, I used to just do the tryouts. That was something that what was my experience like? What did I learn? A lot of cardio, a lot of pro wrestling cardio. So I just remember Pearson giving like concrete advice. But when kids ask me like, what did I learn? What was it like? I just say, well, main thing is don't get hurt, be coachable, and have a personality. And then you're going to be fine. You can master those 3 things. You'll have a good, decent career for a little bit until you need to develop a character and a moveset that you can do against anyone. That's the rule. Whatever you do, you have to be able to do against everyone, which is like, well, tell it to the cruiserweights because they can't do half that shit to the bigger guys, So, those are the 3 things that I've learned when I was there. And, I think my first – and here's another thing. My first coach that I had when I was there was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who is – yeah. You want to talk about like a good – if you could take any coach or any pro wrestler and like who has an amateur wrestling background that wants to get better, that's the guy to go to because he was an accomplished amateur wrestler.
Yes, he was.
Before he got into pro wrestling. So, first thing when I met him, first thing he said to me, he looks at my ears, he goes, he does that. He's like, "Oh, you're a shooter." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know anything about pro wrestling." I was like, "What does that mean?" I didn't say that to him. I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And then I look over at like Fulton. I go, "What's a shooter?" And he goes, "You don't know what that is?" I'm like, "I don't know anything. He just brought me in. I did the tryout. I ran ropes. I took bumps and jumped around. I don't know what these terms mean." So I didn't even know what a shooter was before I came in developmental. I didn't know what a shoot was. So it was an experience, and sucked that after the first year I got hurt and then watched. I only really had like a year of pro wrestling training, and then I had like a year and a half of just injuries and sitting back and watching. But I wouldn't recommend anyone to get hurt and then watch beginner's class. Boom, 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 boom. It's just, it sucked. But I could say that I learned a lot about psychology. And then I learned a lot about the whole time in my head. I'm like, this is my moveset. This is what I'm going to do when I get back. This is my exact thing. And by the time I came back, it was a little too late. But when I got in the indies, I'm like, this is what I want to do. And this is like coming up with my own stuff. I'm going to do this high card slam. I'm going to do my Dr. Bomb gut wrenches, my own version. And I'm going to do this tilt-a-world gimmick thing and just come up with my own ideas. And that's something that like a lot of people that are super new, that when they go there, a lot of things are given to them. They don't really make up stuff unless like you're a gymnast and you can do some flip gimmick or whatever, whatever. I can't do that. I'm too big. So
Yeah.
It's a learning process, and I remember you know who Mansoor is?
Yes.
Okay, so Mansoor from Saudi Arabia. I was his last independent match before he went to WWE.
Whoa.
Yeah, so him and I had a match in this little promotion called East Bay Pro, and we do the match. He actually, he's coming for a pinfall. I just remember saying like, "Good luck in NXT. Don't get hurt," and that was it. Like, good luck. Don't get hurt. And he's been killing it. I mean, been doing really, really well. Really happy for him. So
yes.
Yeah, so he's the guy that I was his last indie match before he ended up going to WWE. And
wow.
And that's where it's like you can they didn't the longest time they were like, we're not taking independent guys, because they learn bad habits. But the thing is, the structure of how to do pro wrestling, like people watch WWE. They document the performance center training so much to where trainers and coaches can see that, and they're like, okay, this is what they want, so this is how we're going to train. So there really isn't bad habits for independent guys going to WWE. It's like, no, what they're just going to tell you to slow down for the camera. That's the biggest transition, and a lot of guys are already pretty good at doing that because everything's recorded.
Yes.
Our Bloodsport matches, they're going to be recorded this weekend. So we're going to do the same exact thing in a sense, I'm sure there's going to be a hard cam somewhere, So, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it, and that's what I learned when I was there, just those three things: be coachable, don't get hurt, and have a personality, and you're good to go.
Yeah, which I gotta ask, right? Like, I mean, your coach being Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, arguably one of the greatest. I mean, he gets overlooked. I mean, not just because of his amateur wrestling background, but like in terms of the guy from start to finish worked on top, and he worked on top as a babyface.
Arguably the greatest babyface.
The greatest babyface of all time. Like. So, I mean, did you get any pearls of wisdom from Ricky the Dragon Steamboat?
So I remember I did my first practice match. It was me and Fulton tagging against my buddy Jody Christofferson.
Warpig.
Warpig. And I guess the kid's name's Jesse White. He's Vader's kid.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were tagging at the time, and I find out that Jody had all this experience in training with Rikishis and All Pro Wrestling and all this stuff. So he knew a lot before anything. And Fulton had training at like Buzz Sawyer School in Ohio.
Yeah.
So he had training, and I'm sure Jesse. He was in the business. He's Vader's kid, so he knew stuff. Me, I didn't know anything. I wish my dad would have been like, "Hey, let's watch some Gary Albright matches to get you an idea." No, he didn't do that. Let's watch some Dr. Death Steve Williams matches. No, never had that. I wish he would have. Would have made my life a lot easier to at least, okay, I have an idea of like what to do, and So, but anyway, we do the match and. God, guys are just laughing because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm probably like a month and change in. That nowhere near just doing lockups and wrist holds, and we didn't work on selling or anything that first year. Just I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like a fish out of water. I'm like, I can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, there's a spot where I feed into a hip toss, and you go to a hip toss, you turn to a fireman's, and then you flip over to a pinfall. and I never practiced that, but we do the match, and Ricky goes, "Okay, we're done. Cal, obviously you're pretty new, but hey, that spot, we talked about that for Fulton, but you did it. That was really good." So he gave really good compliments, and he was big on the little details, like slapping your hand when you put in a hold and finding the camera and making a good face. And like, he was good at all the little details. And then he told a couple stories that, I mean, they don't come off the top of my head, but he told some really cool stuff. And he's a really good teacher. I wish that I only had him for like a month and change. And then they told him they moved him to a Legends deal.
Right.
So they didn't want him to coach anymore. So they moved him to a Legends deal, and then he stopped coaching after that. They asked him to kind of step down, which is a bummer because, they could have made him a producer. He would have been awesome there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, I've only gotten to meet him once, and I actually have a replica title that he signed. And it was weird because it was like after or before a Raw taping in Bakersfield. And if you know Bakersfield, California, the Marriott is right. I mean, it's attached to the arena, right?
Yeah, yeah. Was it Robobank?
Yes, Rabobank, absolutely.
Rabobank?
Yeah, because you wrestled there in your collegiate.
I won state there, brother.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I won a state championship there. Pinned my way through. Yep.
Damn right.
Well. Yep.
You went on a tear.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, the gimmick with Rabobank, if you were a fan, and I wasn't even doing this then, I was just a fan, but if you knew what time checkout was at Marriott on TV tapings, chances are you were going to see whoever you wanted to see that night, right?
Yeah,
and autograph out or pictures or whatever. So that was it. And it was a fun one because, like, I think Booker T, it was like Booker T, Dean Malenko, and Ricky Steamboat, right? They came out, and then, like, I guess not wanting to get hound, Arn Anderson kind of was like, saw the autograph seekers. It was like, and he just kind of swooped around, and it was the funniest thing. But I mean, it was funny because there was like a point where I know Malenko wanted to do pictures, and then Ricky, or like for a certain amount of fans, and then it was vice versa with Steamboat, right?
Yeah.
So I remember my friend, as I'm getting a picture with Malenko, who that is my guy. I used to do this in high school. Yes.
Or was it 10,000? I forget how many.
The man of 1,000 holds, and then Jericho Perry did it. But that was my guy. So I got the picture with Malenko, and then I got my belt signed by Steamboat, and then they take off across the parking lot from the Marriott to whatever. And I was just like, damn, if I could only get a picture with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Oh, it would have been sick. I got a picture with him. I'll have to send it to you.
Oh, please do. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I love it. Yeah. Now, Don McGuire of The Fighter's Voice, he wants to know, how hard is it to separate your persona from sport to your family?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do I separate my persona from the sport to what, my family? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah.
Dude, it's like, how does an actor get ready for a role? It's the same thing. I mean, right now I'm Cal. I'm not Grizzly Kal Jack by any means. So it's like, we're not in a ring. I'm not, I might be holding a mic, but I'm not, just right now we're just shooting around, being good brothers. So it's not that hard. I think some people, like back in the olden days, guys had like Ric Flair. Ric Flair had a hard time separating the man from the wrestler. You can watch that. Was it
30 for 30?
30 for 30. You watch that 30 for 30? Damn, dude. Totally different lifestyle. And those guys, I mean, everything's blended in because they're on the road way more than we are. Like you can talk to any old timer, and they'll tell you, we were on the road making towns. Boom, 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 here. All you guys got to do is blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, times are different. We don't have territories. We have outlaw indie shows. Yeah. So what do you want us to do? I mean, you tell me that I couldn't last in that generation, you got another thing coming. I'd be just fine in that era.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you turn it on when you need to turn it on. And when the red light's on, when you're doing a promo or a character or gimmick, then you're good to go. Then you can get into it. So it's just a matter of. But it's funny because it doesn't seem pro wrestling in the indies is not as character driven,
Right.
and it doesn't seem like it's as character driven in WWE now. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar. He's always Brock Lesnar. I'm sure Drew McIntyre is always Drew McIntyre. Now, Bray Wyatt as the Fiend, different. That's a different totally thing because his character is just totally different. You know, like Matt Riddle. I guarantee Matt Riddle's like that in real life. You know, the whole bro and all that shit. You know,
he is.
Yeah. So I think it just depends on what they want. And it just depends on, you know, what you can give them. But for me, I like doing character stuff because I struggled with that when I was in developmental because I don't have a character when I wrestled in college.
Right.
You know, it was just me, you know, and it was just Clayton Jack. That was just me the whole time. So, you know, we don't do promo acting classes in college unless you dabble in that on your own. Yeah. So, and I know some schools that they have, some of the dojos or the training schools they have for the independents, they do work on that. I've seen some. I went to this one training school here where I live, and some kids are just kind of being themselves. There was this one kid that just had a lights out character. It was great shit, and like that's an example of someone who's you know, I'm sure he's a normal dude outside, but in the ring, dude. Totally different, you know. Here's an example. There's a great trainer, like you know, Sim Bodhi. Sim Bodhi went to high school with Christian Edge.
Yes,
awesome trainer. I got to pick his brain for like 4 hours, and he was I forget it, Ms. Carney, something Carney. Kazarni. Yeah, he was Kazarni, and he was in WWE, and he got to guest train in WWE. God, that guy, wealth of knowledge. And he's a dude I talked to, and we talked about character, and we talked about what your character means and what is Grizzly Kal Jack. And I said, Grizzly Kal Jack is a guy who was told he wasn't tough enough for the business, which is true. A volleyball player guy said that to me once. I'm not going to say his name, but that's all you need to know. It's actually on the WWE network. And it's like, well, if I'm not, I'll do the toughest thing ever. I'm gonna do a Bear Grylls and move out in the mountains. I'm going to kill a bear and wear its skin. And then when I'm going to come back, I'm going to murder everyone that thought me wrong. And that's the gimmick. So, and then like going from talking like this to talking a little bit with a more rasp, a little bit more charisma, and a little bit more meanness. And then that's Grizzly Kal Jack.
I fucking love it. And that makes total sense. I mean, you're talking to a guy that has fucking went, so deep into like tiny homes and fucking Into the Wild and shit like that. So I'm with it. I'm totally with it.
I mean, there's so many. It's like I was studying Westerns as much as possible because it's like I'm not a fur trapper, but there is fur trappings on Paul the Bear here.
Yes.
And, you watch like Jeremiah Johnson, you watch like Outlaw Josie Wales, I was watching like just all the Clint Eastwood, a little bit of Reverent, watched a lot of Reverent. So those are all ideas and stuff. And then, a little bit of Wolverine, a little bit of Sabretooth as far as comic book references go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's a good deal because, none other than Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes fashioned his entire career based on John Wayne movies. So, you weren't wrong. You weren't wrong.
No. And I think when Dusty was there before he passed away, I told him, like, I'm trying to come up with ideas for stuff. And I said to him, like, I watched Lonesome Dove. And Dusty goes, what do you say? He goes, Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones were electrifying on the screen together. And I always remember that. I'm like, okay, if there's one kind of advice he gave me was like watching Lonesome Dove and getting kind of, not like characters, but like kind of the personality those guys had and just the ruggedness and just their own personalities and what their goal was that they were trying, because they were trying to bring cattle up from Texas to Montana. And it's just unfortunate Duvall's character passes away in the spoilers in the TV series. And then it's Tommy Lee Jones's like personal goal is to bring Duvall's body back to Texas for him to get buried. And then at the end of the movie, there's a kid that comes up to Tommy Lee Jones and he goes, I heard you're a man of vision. And he chuckles. He goes, yeah, hell of a vision. So always, that's something that I kind of want Grizzly Kal Jack's character. It's like you start from at some point, you plummet, and it's like building your way back to wherever I'm trying to get to. And Bloodsport's part of that journey for sure. So, I mean, not to be poetic or metaphorical, but yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, I love that you mentioned, speaking of metaphor, I love that you mentioned Lonesome Dove, and that was kind of an emphasis for the Grizzly Kal Jack, because, I mean, and you mentioned the series, because a lot of people forget who ran 3 episodes in the series is arguably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but Bret the Hitman Hart was on Lonesome Dove the series.
Yes, he was on Lonesome Dove. Exactly.
Yes, he was.
He was on Lonesome Dove. Not a lot of people know that.
I'm just saying. I mean, when I go deep in the weeds with my heart and catch wrestling kind of knowledge that I keep between my ears. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Now, Don McGuire wants to know, who were the wrestlers you looked up to when you were young, and have you ever faced a wrestler you look up to?
It's a good question. So when I looked up to, it was easily Macho Man. A lot of Macho Man. I definitely watched Hulk Hogan, but I didn't look up to him. Stone Cold, for sure. The Rock. There's parts of times where I didn't like The Rock, and I liked him.
Yeah.
I think I disliked him more than I liked him. But it's definitely The Rock. Bret Hart, I appreciate more now. But as a kid, then I didn't like him.
Really?
Just as his character. Like, I think he's great.
That was the Hart Foundation versus US, right?
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah. He was. They were really like. It was. I'm like, no, Team USA. So he was doing that gimmick. I think I liked Goldberg a lot as a kid. I definitely did. Yeah. I think Booker T I really liked for sure. And I think there's one more. Just to be really honest. Mankind. Yeah, I like Mick Foley. Yeah, Mankind. Definitely Mankind. Mick Foley.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are the ones I looked at. And the only wrestler I got to look at the face in the ring, it's Billy Gunn. I wrestled him twice.
Really?
I wrestled him twice in this one weekend for this last year in Big Time Pro Wrestling. So I got to face him twice. That was a fun match, And he used to coach me too in developmental when he was there. So it was kind of cool facing your coach, which a lot of guys have in the past. But it's like, man, Billy Gunn's he's in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the main coaches and producers and wrestlers in AEW. Yeah. So, I would say definitely Billy Gunn. For sure.
Yeah, man. I wanted him to win. I mean, obviously, hindsight 2020. I mean, he was deep in the throes of chemical dependency issues and what have you. Yeah. But I was totally into the one Billy Gunn. I was into Shogun, him and Big Show. I thought they were just gonna wreck the world, because of course, with the New Age Outlaws, that was a perfect team, right? You had the talker in Road Dogg, and then you got the worker in terms of Billy Gunn. And, a lot of people look at okay, so Dolph Ziggler, right? They look at him as kind of the definitive, copy, right?
Dolph's he's definitely a hybrid of like Billy Gunn with a famouser, but now he's
Yes.
trying to do Shawn Michaels with a super kick.
Yes.
So he's and like I'll even say Kurt Angle with the amateur wrestling background. So
Yeah.
well, he's got some layers to him.
Oh yeah, but well, the thing about it is like everybody wants to say Dolph is like a carbon copy of one Kurt Hennig and talk about amateur wrestlers.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one.
But you don't get to that evolution and leave Billy Gunn out. I mean,
sure.
For a guy his size to bump the way he did, I mean that bump in the corner where he hits it, like he springboards himself into the post, and he went over, and just to show you what type of athlete he is, he would always, and look back at it, if you want to refute me, but he doesn't go for turnbuckle, he goes for the post. Yes.
Yeah. Billy it's so funny because when he first came in as a coach, it's like, geez, this guy's flipping huge, And it's funny because he got bigger, I think, post WWE, just big buff dude doing bodybuilding and strongman stuff, And it's funny. This is the thing what I really like about Billy Gunn is when he coached us, he's just like, no, I was a football player.
Yeah.
I was a bull rider.
Yeah.
It's like you're a big dude trying to ride a bull.
Yeah.
And he got like a bull riding scholarship at some college in Texas.
Yep.
And then he was asked to try pro wrestling. And he said he only had 10 pro wrestling matches total before getting signed with WWF. Like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got into pro wrestling. It's insane. 10 matches. And we asked him, like, how? And he goes, I had a really good trainer. And I'm like, okay. So he got signed. He started late. And then he did 10 matches, and he came in about the same time as guys do for try 100, 200, 300 matches, So he's an interesting person,
Yeah, he is.
Definitely an interesting person.
Oh man, and it's funny because we talked about, Bart Gunn, Mike Barton in the Buffalo earlier, but I mean, we bring it back to Billy Gunn because they were World Tag Team Champs as the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart Gunn. That's the reason why Austin and the Gunn name still is basically echoed throughout the whole
Austin and Colt.
Yes.
The two sons.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, from the Smoking Guns, it's almost kind of outdated the gimmick itself, right? Like the gun name.
Yeah, but they've kept it and they made it their own thing with the Gun Club.
Yeah.
So good for them. And Austin and Colt, they're two good dudes. So it's fun seeing them with their dad on AEW. Mm-hmm. They're doing their thing. It's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah. Shout out to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So and then Don McGuire, before we he said he shot Half Pint Brawlers for a while through Spike TV and MTV. Watching them go from walkers and crutches to fight night was amazing, right? So how hard, in your estimation, is it to move valued wrestlers to perform night after night with injuries?
There's the old saying where if you're not hurt or have an injury in pro wrestling, then you're not really trying at all. Like, man, I got some little injury or some little reoccurring injury that I got, like my knee's bugging me right now, but that doesn't matter. I still got to wrestle this weekend. Mm-hmm. I've had shoulder surgeries, like that happens from time to time. Hurts, still got to put dirt and rub it and go for it. Like there's tons of guys that, you just put tape on it, tell whoever you're wrestling, hey man, like this part's bugging me, so take it easy. And you just kind of, no one's ever 100%. You're never 100%. If you're always pro wrestling and you're 100%, you're either not taking bumps, you're either not doing any moves, or you're just standing around and the guys are just falling around on you. It's everybody's always hurt. But I think with this day and age, since we all have the knowledge from the internet, and you can just go on WebMD for whatever injury you have, You just diagnose yourself. Oh, I think I have this. That's what WebMD says. Okay, yeah, this is what I have. I just need to take some supplements and some turmeric and some calcium. I'll be good to go, brother. I'll just put some tape on it. I remember this is a cool thing I heard once was Sami Zayn. He said this. He goes, we were talking in beginners class, and he goes, "Here's the thing, you guys. It's kind of good to wrestle with an injury because it allows yourself to be creative on what moves you can and can't do with said injury. So you have to learn to work around your injuries. So you have to adjust your psychology in the ring with whatever injury you have. And a lot of guys are able to kind of hide them. And that's the true art of being a pro wrestler, hiding your weaknesses, but increasing your strengths. And that's the first rule they teach you is hide your weaknesses. So if you have like a hurt foot and you're kind of limping around, maybe you should walk around and not try to run so much, or if you have your wrist is busted, maybe you could work in the match where the guy works your wrist in a very light way. It's like you could watch the Bailey Sasha Banks match they had at one of the takeovers where Bailey had like her wrist was sprained or broken, and they used that in the storyline and they added that, so guys with injuries, it sucks. We're all hurt. Like I'm not feeling 100%, but you just kind of have to go through it, especially if you want to do pro wrestling. So yeah, that's how I kind of feel about it.
I love it. Now, as we head to this Saturday, right?
Yep.
Bloodsport, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 4, where you want to claim your first Bloodsport win, right?
First one. You never forget your first one.
Never, ever. And again, wins and losses matter, folks.
They do.
Your opponent of the night, Nolan Edwards, right?
Yep.
A tenured independent professional wrestler. So what type of strategy are you employing to face Nolan to secure yourself in this victory?
I think I remember when I started with Hammer, I smacked him and I put his ass on the ground. Now my mistake was when you smack someone and they go on the ground, you stay on them. See, I didn't smell the blood like a shark. I should have just stayed on him and just beat the hell out of him. I waited. I was being too nice. You can't be nice in Bloodsport. So with my opponent this Saturday, I'm not your pal Kal, Nolan Edwards. I'm the Grizzly gut wrencher, the bear man. So if I put you down, I'm going to keep you down. And if you get back up, I'll put you back down. There is no grappling if it occurs. If it does occur, I'm going to use my amateur wrestling skills and keep said opponent down. Because you think about it, right now in the independent scene, there should be a man in pro wrestling that's going to out-wrestle me. Not a chance. Maybe have more ring awareness, maybe have a little bit more experience, maybe they can do some more athletic things. But when it comes to grappling, ground-based wrestling, takedowns, no one should touch me. So no matter what Nolan Edwards does, I'm going to take him down, I'm going to keep him down, and then if he gets back up, I'm going to throw him down. I'm just going to rinse and repeat. Pick up, throw down, pick up, throw down, pick up, throw down. So that's what's going to happen. I should have done that against Hammer. I regret it. I had a couple moments, should have had more against him. No matter how big they are, no matter how small they are, I don't care. The results shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter who they are. Pick them up, throw them down.
I love it. And Don McGuire says, it's wrestling. The props aren't fake either. He bought props for the Half Pint Brawlers, and they're legit. Appreciate what you do, Woods. Appreciate you, good sir. And we're tuning him into a wrestling fan. So that's what it is. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that we implore you with this newfound fandom to go ahead and go on to Fight TV, where there's a litany of pro wrestling and MMA competitions, literally a la carte, and purchase Josh Barnett's Bloodsport going down this Saturday. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 4, where you're going to see Kal Jack help secure victory in Bloodsport.
Yep. And it's going to be on the Fight TV. It starts 12 p.m. Eastern. I think 12 p.m. Eastern, or no, 12 p.m. Pacific time. Eastern start at 3 p.m.
3 p.m.
So 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. here Pacific time. Yeah, it's $20. It's not, not too expensive. Worth the buy. Definitely worth the watch. I'm not, I'm like mid card on the show, so you got to watch some other. You're gonna watch plenty of great wrestling, or not even wrestling, Bloodsport fights up until me. So there's plenty to go around. It's gonna be awesome.
And that's the thing. This is fights. This is fights.
Yeah, they're fights.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Ron McGuire says, appreciate you answering my question. Kill it, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope so. I am. I'm going to kill it.
Literally.
Killed like or be killed. Exactly.
Like the bear behind you.
Like Paul Bear behind me. Yeah. Kill or be killed.
I just got it.
There you go. There you go.
So, Cal, you obviously have a litany of people that have supported you both professionally and personally as you march on to Bloodsport. Let's get some shout-outs out of the way, my brother.
Okay. Let's do one of my favorite shout-outs. I'm going to shout out to my dad. I'll do a shout-out to Madman Fulton. I'll do a shout-out to Super Beast, who I believe is at the show, taking on Bad Dude Tito.
Yes.
I'm going to shout out to Mojo Raleigh, because he's having a good time hanging out with his boy Gronk.
Yeah.
And give a shout out to my dog Zero, who's hanging out over there. So that's it. And Ricardo Rodriguez. Shout out to him. He's a good brother. And Memo Montenegro, who is also in developmental. He's Dos Caras in Mexico. So shout out to him. Those are my shout outs.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to shout out the one and only War Master Josh Barnett for putting on what I love about professional wrestling in Bloodsport. And again, it's not just professional wrestling. This is fights. If, again, Eddie Bravo can tout essentially Eddie Bravo Invitational and Combat Jiu-Jitsu as the next evolution from high-skill grappling to MMA, well, guess what? Bloodsport is, if not on the same level, maybe a tinge higher. So
it's gonna go boom here in a bit. Josh Barnett's own version, Bloodsport. It's gonna be good stuff, brother.
Now, as you march into Bloodsport this Saturday, where can people find you to get inside the mind of the Grizzly, Kal Jack?
Okay, well, here's the thing. There's 2 places you can find me. You can find me on Instagram. I just made a new Instagram. I had an old Instagram. But you know what? I got bored of it, deleted it. And then I'm like, once Bloodsport kind of kicked in, I'm like, okay, let's make a new one. Start over, because we need to take all the funny, cutesy pictures. We need to go back to being ruthless again. So you catch me on Instagram at _Kal, spelled Kal, _ Jack, spelled JACK, _, like I repeat, _Kal, _Jack, _. And there's no C's in my name. No, we don't spell it with C's because C's are average, and I'm not average. So I spell it KL. And then also you can find me on Twitter at Kal _Jack. That's it.
Damn right. Well, Cal, we want to see all of the viciousness come Saturday. I'm sorry, but not sorry, Mr. Edwards. Yes, again, once the Grizzly gets his paws on you, ain't no stopping.
Nope. You have to use a gun or a knife to take me out. Damn it. That's it.
That is it. Again, thank you guys for watching us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And again, Bloodsport this Saturday. Again, it's consecutive Saturdays. We get Bloodsport 4 and 5.
The following week, yeah.
Yes,
another match.
All of the oodles of violence.
I mean,
incarnate. So I cannot wait. So go ahead and check it out on the Fight Network. Subscribe to According to Woods. Follow Kal Jack because it's going to be good if you like gory shit. And if you don't take our word for it, I mean, Cal, you're subscribed to the podcast, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So be like the Grizzly, Cal, and be like me. Go ahead and subscribe. But if you don't take our word for it, here's Pro Wrestler Zeta Zang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zang. Make sure you